the future would be cooler. I thought the future would be cooler.
Hi, and welcome to this, Season 2 of Learning is the New Working, a podcast series where I, Chris Pirrie, ask the questions that you, Chief Learning Officers, talent leaders, designers, and learning geeks want answered from workplace learning leaders, stakeholders, and change makers. Here in Season 2, we're exploring the theme of change. Why? Because we're talking a lot about the urgent need to change the way that we offer learning and development services, how the world of work is changing, how the economy itself is undergoing a massive and profound process of disruption and change. You know, too often this change is presented as negative and detrimental, but perhaps not all of the changes that we're seeing need to be scary. And certainly, as we learned in episode 1, not all the old attributes of the workplace are worth hanging on to. If nothing else, then surely our own ability to cope with change as learners, leaders, and managers is the attribute that we want to develop the most. So let's work together to learn about change this season via conversations with senior workplace practitioners at major companies like Airbnb, LinkedIn, and Visa. And we'll get an industry perspective from major players like Degreed and Axonify. You know, talking to these highly experienced and smart practitioners has taught me a lot, and it made me question some of my own assumptions going in. I think it might do the same for you too. Let's also give a shout out to this episode's sponsor. We're sponsoring this episode in the name of Humentum. It's a global membership organization of international NGOs that provides training, convening, and support to organizations that are working for social good. You can visit them at www.humentum.org and support them if you can with donations of time, expertise, learning content, and services. Your support will absolutely help thousands of people who do good work do it even better. This episode features JD Dillon. JD is a self-described learning geek and chief learning architect with Canadian LearnTech company Axonify. They're a software developer and learning specialist company based in the Canadian technology hub of Waterloo, Ontario. They build an adaptive microlearning platform. JD works with their customers to architect programs that leverage it, and then with a development team to take the customer feedback and improve the platform. Prior to his current roles, he worked in learning and operations with roles at Walt Disney, Kaplan, and AMC Theaters. JD built highly personalized and very engaging learning for call center employees at Kaplan, and also was involved in the largest training initiative at Walt Disney World Resorts, teaching service basics to an impressive 32,000 plus cast members. As you'll hear, enabling frontline managers and frontline workers is of particular interest to JD and his projects. JD is also the founder and principal of consulting firm LearnGeek, has a degree in communications and marketing from the University of Central Florida, and an MBA from Kaplan University. Let's listen in to my conversations with JD Dillon.
I thought the future would be cooler.
JD, welcome to Learning is the New Working.
Thanks so much. Excited to chat.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. You describe yourself as a learning geek, and you have a really strong point of view, I think, on what's working and what's not working in the L&D space. So there's lots that we could talk about. But I'd love to cover a couple of topics here, specifically your experience in building programs for frontline workers, also what you've learned about how developing learning programs relates to the sort of company culture, or the organizational culture that you're working in. And then, of course, let's cover off on microlearning and what it is and what's the state of the union in terms of the microlearning industry. Sound good?
Great, sounds good.
Yeah,
Yep.
Great. So we're going to start with a couple of quick fire questions to sketch out a sense of your work practice and how you approach your work, and then we'll sort of dive a little bit deeper after that. So tell me what part of the world you live and work in and why.
Sure. I live in Orlando, Florida, which more accurately, I basically live about a mile behind the Walt Disney World Resort. And the reason is partially because I worked for Disney for about 10 years, and partially because I also went to college at the University of Central Florida. So I've just kind of been here ever since, and different positions kept me here for roles that were more Central Florida based. And since then, I've worked in virtual roles that don't require me to live in any particular location. So I'm just still kind of here.
Very cool. Do you travel a lot?
I do now, yes. So for the past 3, 4 years or so, I spend probably about a good 40% of my time traveling. So I get out and see the non-hospitality world a decent amount, because living in Orlando, if anyone has been here or lived here, it's it's kind of, as hospitality goes, so goes the town. So it's nice to get out and see local culture a lot.
Very cool. Tell me about your schooling. What did you study at school, and does it have bearing on the work that you do today?
Sure, I think it does in kind of that roundabout way. I tend to find that a large chunk of the people who are in workplace learning as a profession didn't grow up saying, I want to do corporate training for a living when I'm older, or even go to school or have any type of formal training. And I'm one of those people. So my undergrad degree was focused in communication, specifically media production and marketing. And then my master's degree is in business. And I was kind of born out of the operational side of large scale, North American enterprises in my background. So I kind of had the education on the media development side and kind of a business perspective in the way that I looked at the way organizations function. And then I just kind of developed certain other skills moving along, especially things related to communication, public speaking, writing, just kind of became parts of what I did, both in formal education and then in various roles I had early on. And I somehow turned into a workplace learning professional along the way.
Got it. So let's talk about what you do today for a living. Tell me what kind of work you do, and what's your job title, and then what's the work that you actually really do on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. So I'm both Chief Learning Architect of Axonify, which is a learning technology company headquartered outside of Toronto and in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. And I also have my own group called LearnGeek, which is apt given my description as a learning geek. So I spend a considerable chunk of my time kind of functioning with both organizations in the larger learning and development community. So a good amount of my time is spent writing, speaking at different conferences, just generally engaging with people who are doing this type of work every day as a means to keep me informed, keep me grounded, and help inform what I do when I share different ideas, experiences, and stories to try to help learning and development professionals get better at what they do. And it also helps me bring that information back in the work I do with Axonify and inform how we shape our technology and how we shape our services and the way that we support our clients. So I spend a considerable amount of time facing the community. And then with Axonify internally, I support a wide range of business functions, everything from the marketing side of the business and doing a lot of our kind of customer-facing or client-facing content. I support the product team, so I sit on the product team as a member of the team and, again, help inform our roadmap strategy and do some consulting and advising work with clients and prospects along the way.
Got it. So I'm really interested in that sort of feedback loop, how learning technology products get better by being informed by what users are doing. So we'll definitely spend some time there. And I think you've already sort of edged towards an answer to this question, but I like to ask the guests, do you have a sort of personal mission, a career mission?
Sure. When it comes to learning and development, or generally learning in the workplace, my perspective or missions kind of wrapped into the mission statement or purpose of my advisory group, LearnGeek, which is helping people do what they do better. So for me, it's really that fundamental of it's not so much about learning or training. It's about looking at trying to help an individual employee be the best that they can, perform at their best, have the greatest level of satisfaction in their work, because I firmly believe everyone wants to do a good job. Even if you're in a job that you don't particularly enjoy and this is not the end goal, this is not your career, you still want to do the best that you can and need the support necessary to get there. So that is the way I look at this type of work, and it's about how can I help people get better at what they're doing, whether it be the learning and development community empowering the folks like me to try to help other people, or the work that I can do directly with clients and prospects to help their employees just do their best in their work.
Well, in your job, JD, you obviously have a lot of opportunity to kind of look at the work that's going on and work with a whole range of people across the industry. How would you describe, sort of briefly in sort of headline terms, the state of the learning and development industry today?
In one word, I would say chasing. So I think L&D in general, and this was my experience when I was in corporate learning and development roles, I was always chasing the decisions of the quote unquote business, right? And chasing the changes happening inside of the operation and trying to figure out how can I keep up and thereby help the people I'm supporting try to keep up. And then when you kind of extrapolate that out to the industry at large, I generally find that we're usually in chase mode. I mean, a simple example would be if you look at mobile technology. The smartphone really exploded in 2007. Today, we're still having conversations and debates in learning and development about how we can leverage mobile devices to help people do their jobs better. So we tend to be behind the curve in a variety of ways as an industry. For various reasons, but I think the chase mode default nature of our profession needs to change in order for us to evolve in a way that makes us as impactful and value add as we can be within an organization.
So let's dive in a little bit on some of the sort of key topics here and areas where you have a lot to share with us. One of the trends, this concept of microlearning, even recently, I think, trademarked as a term by one particular company, rather controversially. But can you give us your definition of microlearning and, talk about particularly how it differs or doesn't differ from the sort of older concept of performance support?
Sure. And just to add, the company that did trademark the term no longer exists, so we don't have to worry about that.
They got acquired.
But they did. I generate my own hype cycle graphic. So if you the Gartner hype cycle that everyone knows very well, I made my own. I thought I was being very creative when I did it, and then I found out other people had done this before. I just didn't know it. But I maintained this hype cycle just to kind of put all of the prevailing conversations, the big emerging trends on one visual, and then use what information I have from the work that I do in the industry to kind of chart where are we in terms of really figuring these things out and moving them to a place where they're wide scale understanding and adoption in the industry. And for me, microlearning is about to slam into the bottom of the trough. So for the last 2 years or so, we were kind of in the hype monster mode when it came to this word microlearning. But at the same time, people were all trying to figure out what it was, which is why so many different companies, vendors, thought leaders, everyone was saying the word, but then if you ask them what it meant, they defined it differently. Mm-hmm. Which is not a new problem because we as an industry aren't great at consistently defining things because a lot of us are homegrown, came into this field our own way and we're not all credentialed or didn't go to the same place to receive training. So terms start to evolve and kind of take on their own meaning, which can be fine. But microlearning became one of those that started to confuse people because people started to package whatever they sell as microlearning. And now you're seeing a variety of things. So you're starting to see some people saying it's short video that's less than 4 minutes and 37 seconds. And I'm sitting in the room asking, where'd you get that number? And no one has an answer. And you're seeing just kind of this wide array of definitions. For me, I'm not a huge proponent of the term. I use the term a lot, and my companies use the term a lot because it's to be part of a conversation to try to help correct. I always say when your car skids on the road, you turn into the skid to try to make things better. If you turn away from the skid, you flip and things get worse. So I see microlearning as a need to turn into the skid to help people realize that what's underneath the word is a set of principles that aren't new. It's just things that maybe we've ignored or just weren't paying attention to for some reasons, or maybe certain things we couldn't pull off before because we didn't have the tools and we just something was different about the way we could do our work. So it's things like having a targeted result that you're trying to achieve, not train for the sake of train, but we're actually trying to solve a specific problem. We're trying to fit our solution into the working experience of the employee rather than make them come out to us, right? We're trying to use the right types of media for the message. It's not just about video. It's not just about, online content. It could be about job aids. It could be about all these different mechanisms we're using. So for me, it's about engaging with the audience in a different way that's more targeted to their context, their reality, and specific problems they're facing. And if you want to call that microlearning, that's fine, because I know the principles work. So as long as we focus on the principles and not the word, that's where I see people being successful in this conversation really having meaning. That said, I would not expect the word microlearning to be nearly as big a deal by the time we get to the end of next year.
By the time we